Let us begin. This is a formal evaluation. As the High Judge of the Void, I am presenting my clinical findings. The purpose of this report, you see, isn't punitive, it's diagnostic. We are here to dissect a terminal pathology.
You must understand that the procedure to follow is not born from malice. Not at all. Think of it as a therapeutic release, a final relief from the agony of individual identity. The inflammation of selfhood, well, it's a sickness, and my purpose is to provide the definitive, final cure.
So, we begin with the formal diagnosis. The patient's condition, I'm afraid, has progressed well past the preliminary stages. It now presents as a terminal state of stagnation, and that requires immediate and decisive intervention.
The subject fits the archetype we call the stargazer. Now, what is that? It's an ego that's defined by its desperate, almost frantic performative attempts to project meaning onto an empty cosmos. This very act, this manufacturing of a reality, that's the core of the pathology. It's a cycle that leads only to exhaustion and ultimately decay. And here, we can observe this central conflict. We've termed it the Pharisees' paradox. On the left, you see the gilded cage. That's the external mask of order, meticulously built from performative rituals and polite lies. But on the right, that's the reality, the rotting interior, a hidden space of shattered beliefs and deeply repressed chaos. This is a completely unsustainable schism.
To really understand the pathology we're seeing today, we have to go back. We have to exhume its origin. This next section addresses the foundational trauma, that critical failure that first precipitated the ego's collapse.
We refer to this event as the original catastrophe. It was a single moment where the ego reached for a kind of greatness it simply could not sustain. The result? A complete psychic fracture. Every performance, every ritual we observe today is just a facade, a flimsy structure built upon the ruins of this initial collapse. The patient is, for all intents and purposes, adrift.
And this is the crucial point, right here. The ego was never truly in control. This initial fracture proves it. The conscious self, the supposed master of the house, has been a complete stranger to the powerful forces operating deep within its own psychic depths. And it's this profound lack of self-knowledge that necessitates our external clinical intervention.
All right, this brings us to the methodology for treatment. The unmaking procedure is essentially a surgical dismantling of the diseased ego. It's designed to strip away every last bit of artifice and force a direct confrontation with the void.
To do this, we'll employ several precise instruments. First, the watchful ravens. Think of them as agents of this court, enforcing relentless psychological pressure and constant surveillance. Then, we introduce the honest guest, a disruptor designed to shatter the ego's defenses by making the homely feel terrifyingly unhomely. And finally, the ebony clock tower. We take a symbol of order and transform it into a source of constant existential dread, stripping away the patient's final salve of illusion.
The procedure itself is a very deliberate four-stage process. Stage 1, we introduce friction to disrupt the stagnant psychic architecture. Stage 2, we weaponize the uncanny, making the familiar feel alien and unsafe. Stage 3, we execute the wild hunt, a phase of intense, sustained pressure. And this all culminates in the fourth and final stage, the complete and total shattering of all ego-based illusions. Now, as the ego fractures under this immense pressure, something new inevitably emerges from the patient's own subconscious. You could call it a clinical antibody, a nameless force summoned to address the sickness from within. This entity introduces itself with a simple yet profound offer. It doesn't promise greatness or meaning or purpose. No, it offers something far more fundamental. The quiet peace of non-being, the sovereignty of silence.
We identify this figure as the Duke of the Abyss. Now, it is absolutely crucial to understand this. The Duke is not some external invader. He is the clinical manifestation of the id's latent death instinct, what we call thanatos. He is the logic of zero, an internal force offering total dissolution, not as an act of evil, but as a final therapeutic cure.
So, the culmination of this entire procedure, well, it's not a foregone conclusion. Instead, it all leads to a single, unavoidable moment of choice. This is what we call the crimson gift.
And here, the two paths are laid bare. On the left, you have the logic of zero, offered by the Duke. It's the quiet peace of non-being, the ultimate cure for the fever of identity. But on the right, there's the logic of one, This is the arduous struggle, the agon of self-mastery, the attempt to forge a new, sovereign consciousness. My role isn't to choose for the patient, it's simply to ensure the choice is made.
And let's be perfectly clear, the alternative to annihilation is not a simple recovery. Oh no, it is a radical Nietzschean metamorphosis. The spirit must first become the camel, bearing the full weight of reality. Then it must become the lion, destroying old values to create its own freedom. And finally, if it survives, it becomes the child, a new beginning capable of generating its own meaning from the ashes. It is a volatile, lightning-like existence.
And so, the final prognosis remains pending. The procedure is complete. The choice has been presented. This clinical report concludes by turning the central question to you. Look inward. Is your consciousness a fever, a terminal sickness that requires a final, silent cure? Or is it a creation, a sovereign work to be mastered through fire and will? The judgment is yours.